Welcome into South Philly Sauce, an Audacy original, brought to you by 94 WIP and Jack Daniels. Al Morganti, Ashyn Sullivan here with you, breaking down a couple of games here this week. Flyers, a busy week for them, 4 games in 1 week. And we just did a broadcast last night for the Carolina Hurricanes game. It was going to be a tough test for the Flyers. We knew that. A lot to unpack from that game as the Flyers lost by 1 goal. They played them so tough, and it was so frustrating to watch at the end when the Hurricanes really just put on a clinic of how to beat a team. And we talked about it last night. Hurricanes playoff hopes, Stanley Cup hopes, and you saw that at the end of the game when it mattered most.
Yeah, they got the Flyers running around because the Flyers were exhausted chasing the Canes.
Yeah.
I mean, there was also a PK, a shorthanded situation or an icing situation where they were exhausted, but they were running out of gas anyway because the Canes were just relentless in their forecheck. They were relentless in their attack. And I think at the end, you just saw one team that kind of knew how to win at the end, and a Flyers team that was still finding its way in those areas. And they just couldn't keep up with the real overwhelming performance by Carolina when it really counted at the end of the game.
Yeah, and the perspective is everything right now, because it almost seems like with this Flyers team so far this year, the opponents that are the toughest bring the best out of the Flyers. And the Anaheim Ducks was the outlier. I don't even know what that game was, but an opponent that maybe wasn't up to tier of Carolina, Vegas, Dallas, even though Anaheim swept the road trip.
Right.
I should say that now.
Anaheim is on a major heater right now.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable what they've done. You see what they've got, the young talent coming up. So sometimes early in the season especially, you can see some teams sort of going above what people expect. And the water finds its own level, I guess, toward the end. But you'd be surprised. You got to jump here in October, November. It really counts at the end of the year.
Well, that's what everyone's kind of saying about this Flyers team, is they were off to a hot start, and everyone was like, oh, well, settle down. This is how it always goes. But we always said it looks differently. But I want to read a quote from Torts yesterday because I thought it was so telling exactly where this Flyers team is. This was post-loss. He was animated, as he always is. I'm not going to stand up here all year long and talk about moral victories, but I've got to goddamn remember where we are as far as where we are in the organization and the process that we're at. I'm certainly not going to boo this team. I'm going to try to help them. The process is, a year ago, this wasn't even a game. And Vegas and Dallas, we have to remember the long term, even though I'm sitting there frustrated because you watch the final 2 minutes and you're like, oh my gosh, how can this happen? But you have to remember where this team is.
Yeah, Tortorella is a fascinating study in leadership, or in sometimes plus, sometimes minus. I'd love to see like Wharton School that go at Tortorella's news conferences. I've watched it enough over the years, and I've watched enough coaches like that. There are times you need to pump up the tires, and sometimes you need to deflate. And it's weird that oftentimes it's after a loss that you see the things that are good, and after a win you see the things that are bad.
He deflates. He's so quick to deflate.
Really.
Yeah.
And I think in this case there was no need to. We can point out that kind of at the end of the game they couldn't compete with Carolina,
right?
Partly because they're exhausted, and partly because Carolina's just a better team with more talent. But I think it was important for Tortorella to bring out, boy, a lot of good things happened in this game. And I think a part of it was, if you also listen to when he was talking, he previously, last season, when he was stressing defense, would say, when it's just not generating chances. But there's a subtle difference right now in the criticism. The criticism is we're not finishing, we're actually getting chances.
Right.
And the guys that we think might be able to finish aren't finishing.
Right.
There's a difference there. Now they're actually in position so they can get something done. And it's kind of like Ashyn, kind of like when you're looking for the big save by the goalie, and Hart made a monster save in this game. You're also looking for the big goal by somebody now, because there's enough offense there, or enough potential offense there, that has to come through. Right.
And it's the big goal when you need it.
Yeah.
And that's where the Flyers just aren't, because we saw the clock ticking down. We saw 1.5 minutes left, and you said it has to be right now. And when you're watching the game right now, you don't have the confidence that they can deliver in a minute span. No,
especially since early in the third period, or maybe 5 minutes in, 4 minutes in, chance after chance after chance. Right. I mean, just crossbar, post, cross ice. The goaltender made actually Anderson, he made some really great saves. He let in some soft goals, I thought. But then as the Flyers pushed in that third period, he made some terrific saves. So that's where I think it was like, maybe if you get those earlier in that period, it's not that chaos at the end where Carolina is just suffocating you.
Right. And now we go to a new segment that our lovely producer has come up with called Lost in the Sauce, and a couple guys that we want to just see more from. And there are numerous examples we could go with. What's your guy, Al?
Forster. He had a chance 2 games ago on a power play where he passed up a shot to make a pass. And I'm like, man, you got to take that shot, especially because your game is scoring goals, to take that shot, to not be afraid to take it. Sometimes when you're in a kind of a lull, you don't take that shot. And this past game, there are a couple of times it looked like, well, he's got that target right there. And that I'm looking for him to get that goal that kind of sets him off, that gives him the confidence to take shots, which is one of the big pluses for him, to take shots, and B, more importantly, probably A1, you need the goals.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's there. I mean, you have to pay attention to defense. Obviously, Tortorella teams, that's what's stressed early. But you need goals. And he's a guy that I think they counted on to provide more offense that we've seen. This is very, very early, and you're hoping that once that first goal comes, once that first big offensive game comes, it follows up again and again. Yeah,
well, that's what he's here for. And it's weird because last season when he came up, he lit things up for, 10 days he was up, and he was scoring goals, and we're like, my gosh, this guy has to stay. And we saw that in training camp as well, and it's not resonating right now, but I think we all can agree it's brewing. It's there. We can all feel it coming because he's so close right now. I thought it was going to be last night that he was going to get it, especially when we were down there at the third period watching.
Oh my gosh, he got a couple of really good chances. They always say, well, as long as you're getting chances, don't worry. Well, I worry a little bit because
at this point,
because it gets in, whether they want to admit it or not, it gets in your head a little bit. He sounds like, talk to him, real confident kid. Didn't have any problems in that area, but everybody, I don't care if you're Wayne Gretzky back in the day. You go a couple of games, you start to say, what's going on here?
Right.
As they say, can't buy a goal. Maybe it's a case of, I don't think it is though. Sometimes they say, well, just get a goal that goes in off your foot or off your head or something. From him, I want to see him launch that shot with the shot that he has to get the goal.
And every player goes through it. I remember Travis Konechny went through it a little bit last season. He was in that drought, we called it, and he was fine, but I am even more fearful, and fearful is the wrong word, but with the way this lineup is changing so much lately, if Tyson Forster doesn't start producing here soon, I would not be surprised if Torch changes some things and puts Frost in permanently or something of that nature, because the reason Tyson Forster is in the lineup is to score goals.
It is. He is. But that'd be a tough one for me with the chances that he's kind of generating. Yeah. But I can see him doing it because you got guys that have to get back in the lineup. They broke up a fourth line that's been very effective last night. Right.
And there's no way that Torch is going to be okay with just continuing to do so. That's why I'm so curious what Wednesday's lineup looks like, because you tell me, Frost played well enough to stay in. Yeah.
He did. He's not. I mean, I thought that he had a good third period, especially. He's one. The problem with him is not that one game. Like I've often thought I'd see a game where I saw good from him, and there was good, especially on a power play. Threaded a couple of passes. He still lost a couple of possessions going into the zone. I don't want to be too harsh on him because they had a lot of turnovers, the entire team. That's a tough team. They turn the puck over, make you turn the puck over a lot.
Yeah.
My worry with him all the time is that you don't know what you're going to get. As a coach, a coaching staff, you want to be kind of know what you're going to get most games out of a player. I need the follow-up with him, that it's not one good one step back, one step forward, one step back again. We've gone through that too many times. I need at least 3-1.
Right.
In steps forward and steps back.
Yeah, when you're costing the younger guys getting opportunities. Yeah. And it's him. It seems like it's Noah Cates at times.
Noah Cates had, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but boy, he got cleaned up in the face-off circle. Yeah. He really got, you look at the goals that were scored, and they were off face-offs, a couple, and the goaltender had to move across because they didn't control the face-off. And he really, I mean, he's still for a young player, a dependable player, but you're going to have to improve that area. You simply have to improve that area because you can't get, especially against that team, crucial situations to come in and lose 80% of your face-offs. Right.
You just don't give your team a chance. And then Cam York on defense, that's why I don't think I'm going to be surprised on Wednesday if we see something different.
Yeah, York's he's had some struggles. I mean, and there've been glaring mistakes that have come up, but they're kind of thin back there with Ristolainen still unaccounted for.
Right.
So I mean, I don't know that you want to. He's a funny player.
You can't figure him out. Yeah.
Yeah, because you'll see a couple of moments like, wow, he can carry this thing. So I don't know what he's going to do in that, because when you look at some of the pairings that they've had, I don't know how easy it is to take him out of that lineup right now, because their pair is so thin once you get past the top two two pair, that what you're going to do. So I think if they had some options, that might be an option. I don't think right now it's necessarily an option, but you never know with Torts what he's going to do. You
truly never know, and it's probably going to change a bunch of times. And I forgot to tell you this. I was walking through the concourse yesterday, and I was talking to one fan, and he was by far the most optimistic fan I've ever spoken to, because he just broke it down so perfectly of where this team is right now. He said, this is the best case scenario for Flyers fans who are truly Flyers fans who have been through this through history, that right now the team's fun to watch, much more fun than last year. You have young guys getting great chances. They're in every single game, but they're losing, and they'll still get a top pick. He's like, this is perfect. It's what everybody wants. Everyone's so happy.
I the top pick, I don't think they'll be in that conference. Maybe they will. I mean, it's a lottery, so you never know. But I think they still could be better than some people expect when you look at it. When you look at, team coming up, Buffalo, I assume they're going to make a push for the playoffs, but they haven't had the greatest start to the season.
Right.
So you don't know. When you've got Hart in goal, it gives you a chance every night that he's starting in goal. That's important, and I don't think there's any way that there's a tank situation going on.
No.
But I agree with most of the fans that, if we get energetic games, we're in the games, we play physically, we see some progress from the young players. I got no issue with the record becomes secondary until that song will change come February. If you're in contact with the playoff spot, that will change real quickly. Real quickly. Oh yeah.
If we're on a pregame show and we're talking about, hey, if this team loses and we're starting to do the math, then I totally agree, it goes out of the picture. But this fan at least was saying he thinks fans have to agree with this is not a playoff team right now, and they have to be okay with that because they're still a couple of years away. So be okay with the process, which is what Torts was talking about last night. Yeah.
They don't want
false hope of a playoff team.
They don't want to get to expand the expectations that they're, but I still think they can achieve more than many people expected at the beginning of the season.
They already have. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
this looks so different than last year.
That power play, I don't understand it.
Gosh.
I look at the elements that they have and I say, why can't this get unlocked? Yeah. I mean, imagine the difference if that thing starts to work, because they got some kids that will draw penalties. So, and give you that chance, that would change the equation a whole lot. So although I agree that I want to see the young kids play, I want to see effort, I always go in thinking I want to make the playoffs.
Of course.
Because I'm like,
because you always say get in and you never know what could happen.
Well, never know. Plus, it's been a while since the excitement level of the playoffs. Like, they're going to play a team, they're going to play Buffalo. They haven't been in the playoffs, God, forever. If you're a fan, that's why you're buying tickets. I mean, even if it's a year away, whatever, it's like, okay, that you hate to see that party going on and you're not in it.
Yeah.
Even look what the Phillies, when they just get in, what it did for the next season, and what it does also for players that want to come here and play. So although I don't expect them to, I expect to hope that they do well into the season.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with fans wanting that. They should want that, and it leads you to wonder how this season is going to go, because, and I go back to the power play. You tell me, how do you fix it?
You can't,
because they've tried so many combinations and it's not working.
Power plays are one of the most bizarre situations in all of sports. Extra man, you would think you have a huge advantage. Look at Carolina. They score shorthanded goals. I mean, look at the Flyers when they score a shorthanded goal. It's amazing to me how much energy you can be taken away from you because of a power play. Like Pittsburgh, with all the great talent they've had, they've gone through unbelievable struggles with the power play. I think with the exception of, Edmonton's power play is just a machine. But look at the two players that are there. Washington with Ovechkin, where he just sets up there and just launches shots. That's an outlier in this situation. But over and over again, you watch and you say, how can a team like like Pittsburgh, how on earth can they struggle on a power play? How can it happen? And you'll see a Bruins team that will go through 3 weeks where it doesn't work. And then there has to be somebody that unlocks it. I thought, maybe they'd have this kid in Brinks that he would come in and unlock this thing. And I think it's there, but it's also one of those cases of you get on that power play and you refuse to shoot. And it's annoying because the players, like, these fans are idiots, just saying, shoot. There's no shot. Well, sometimes it just take the shot. Yeah. It's what you want. That's what you're hoping for. But the Flyers have tried set up from down low, a bumper situation against the half wall, which they had Giroux on that and it still didn't work. Mm-hmm. And now they've got Kidd on that, trying to make it work that way. So people have, since day one, tried to figure it out. And then once it starts rolling, thank you. You get complete confidence in it.
Right.
But they're never going to have an Edmonton situation with the power play where it's like, okay, it's automatic. Get a goal. They don't have those pieces right now. But you can't lose. The problem with a power play that doesn't work, sometimes, okay, you just don't get a goal, but you can't let it be deflating. Mm-hmm. And that, I think they've run into that a couple of times where it doesn't work at all. They try the slingshot to come back, which eats up time and comes back. And then instead of an opportunity to get ahead, it becomes very, very deflating on your side and very, very inflating on the other bench.
That is absolutely what it feels like. Even for us watching, we hear the announcer and bowl.
Yeah.
Here we go, power play, and you're like, oh.
Everybody at home is going decline. Yeah. Oh, no, not happening.
Not again.
Yeah.
It's true. And yeah, I could see how you get one, and it starts to click. And man, it'd be great if it was Brink.
Well, you want a power play that guys on the bench are clamoring to get on the ice.
Right.
That's what you want.
The competitiveness.
Clamoring. I can pump up my points here selfishly by getting on that power play. And power plays mean. It does mean points. It should. It's cash money. Man, come in and get points on the power play.
Lately. Gosh. And then you hope. This is a really busy week for the Flyers. Flyers have 4 games this week. 3 games remain since this podcast recording. 2 against Buffalo, 1 against the LA Kings at home on Saturday. Buffalo is a team. They're good. And it's funny so far this season, besides Anaheim, who we thought the Flyers would be able to handle, and they certainly did not. And the Minnesota Wild, the Flyers beat pretty well. They're all pretty even competition. Don't you agree?
Yeah, they are. Buffalo... If I was a Sabres fan, like when's this going to, how many times have they thought going into this season, this is the year, and I thought this year with Buffalo, it was between Buffalo, Ottawa, Detroit, which team is
on the bubble
going to get in and which teams are going to drop. And, here we are, November, basically, and the Sabres haven't really made that statement. The Bruins continue to win. It looks like Buffalo, it's infuriating there. And like there's such a thing as a work in progress and then a work with no progress. Mm-hmm. And the fear there is it's a work without progress. But I still think there's too much there. Their defense, their young kids on defense are so good. And I think maybe they put a little too much confidence in a young goaltender there, maybe. But boy, there's a lot of Thompson. They got some guys that can flat score goals and get something rolling here. So the Flyers have a handful with a Buffalo team, and the Kings. They're kind of different than they used to be with Jonathan Quick in goal now. I think the question mark is they've got a veteran goalie and a young goalie, and a very talented team in front of them. But they don't have that Quick, which made the whole difference there. The Doughty, they've got really good players up front. But they can't rely on their goaltending like they did in the past. But they're legitimately, the Flyers will be up against a team that really has a chance in the West to make a lot of noise in the playoffs, if not go to Stanley Cup Finals.
Right. In this, Buffalo, you go Kings, all within 1 win of where the Flyers are right now. So it's not like you look at the record and say, oh my gosh, you don't feel this way against these teams that you did against Dallas, Vegas, Carolina.
The NHL, far different than... the idea with more playoff teams is you're in contention for a while. You're kind of bunched up, and that point, the loser point, keeps everybody close. Now, with the exception of perhaps San Jose, it's like, no matter how bad this start has been, it used to say American Thanksgiving, if you're out, you're out. And I don't think so anymore because there's so many teams that are, we just mentioned Detroit, Ottawa, Buffalo, just to keep in contact with them. So every game is terrifically important to come in to keep, even if you don't think you're a Stanley Cup contender, you're a playoff contender. And that I like having all the teams bunched up. In fact, I like if baseball adds more teams, I'm good with that too, because I don't want to be a team that in baseball I'm out of it in July.
Right.
Or back in the day in hockey, there were teams that were out of it in December. Mm-hmm. And like, we don't need too many of them. A few that are rebuilding maybe, but you don't want a bunch. You want a bunch of fan bases that think, you know what? Goaltender gets hot, we got a shot.
No, it is cool. And it was a perfect example of even last season. Even that the Flyers struggling much more last year than they are so far this year. I remember when I first started with NBC, come late January, early February, we were doing pregame shows looking at the odds. Yeah. Looking at, okay, if this team loses and the Flyers win these 3, could they sneak in? And that was the record last year.
And it can be false hope. Yeah. I mean, but it's still something to go in. You're looking at the standing.
And it's true, because if that were to happen,
really,
they would have made it.
Really. Yeah. So I mean, you want to stay in contact. That's what you want, and you want to see the young players develop. And I think we're seeing some of that. I'm curious now as they go in where the ability for Tortorella to live with mistakes. I'm impressed so far.
He's been rather patient.
With his ability to live with mistakes, but I don't think it'll be lasting that much longer.
No, I think we all kind of feel it brewing where there might be a pop-off here sometime soon. And we love those. We love watching those post-game pressers. Those are the most entertaining.
Yeah, it was
I'm glad I'm
the
out
only
of the
thing
room,
more entertaining was the alligator
Wally.
what do they call it? The service alligator or
He's
whatever.
a support gator.
Support gator.
Yes.
I knew when Keith Jones become president, I fully expect emus at games. That, we're going to have the farm animals come in and to support. But it was kind of cool.
It was cool, but how is Citizens Bank Park going to say no? And Wells Fargo's like, come on in. Like, how do they not have the same rules?
I felt good because he couldn't get into the Phillies to see Bryce Harper, but Bryce Harper's at the game and the alligator was there.
Right.
So good for him.
So the alligator was happy, and that's really all that matters.
Really.
And that is South Philly Sauce, an Audacy original, brought to you by Jack Daniels and 94 WIP. We will be back later on this week to see if the Flyers are able to beat the Buffalo Sabres, so stay with us.